Okay, in this video I'm going to show you how to prime your dampers and how to get to the back ones if you need to prime the back ones. So this is a full priming video from start to finish. So the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to lock. So I've got to get to the back ones to prime them first. So you're going to lock all of your lines here for your white. Just bring these up so you can get to your damper, the top of it, to pull it off. So pull these up evenly. Just click them once is enough. And once. So once you have all these clicked, now we can pull these out to get to the back dampers to pull out those and prime them. So what we need to do here to start off with is pull out these dampers here. So you're going to want to have a lot of paper towel down and across the front, and I have it up the sides as well, up the sides here as well. I just taped it up with painter's tape. So I'm going to start off by pulling out these dampers to get to the back ones. So we just kind of pull them out one at a time, grabbing onto this part here, pinching it, and then pulling it out. So pinch, and then just pull it out carefully and slowly. You're going to have to reprime these when you have to prime the back ones. So then you pull them off very carefully, again remembering that if these touch, if the dampers touch each other, as soon as you touch that, it starts to drip. So your damper will drip. So just pull them off carefully and straight out. So I'm just pulling them off one at a time, and then I'm using both hands to kind of carefully pull that straight out. And these kind of help it keep it separated. So just a quick tip, another thing you can do before you put these up with the zip ties is you can take each one, and because you have it clipped here, you can just press on the damper over a cup and just drain kind of what's in the damper over a cup. And that way, when you put it up, you won't get as much spillage here. You could do it either or. You can either just put them right up and just leave them carefully sitting there and a little bit will drip, or you can empty them first. Once you empty each one, again, just using a foam tip, is just wiping the bottoms of each one before you zip tie it up. And just clean everyone like that, and then put the zip tie around and then bring it up. Either or works. You'll get a little bit more spillage here if you don't do that first, but either or works. Okay, so you're going to need about 3 or 4 tie wraps. We're going to kind of tie these up so they're up mid-air and get them out of our way. So don't go too tight. Just leave it a little loose to be able to kind of let it lift up. It'll kind of lift up like that. Then we're going to attach another one here at the top. Again, don't go too tight. Just kind of leave it with a little bit of play. So you can kind of play around and manipulate where you got to kind of leave it so it doesn't drip everywhere. And then you kind of run one up and through like that. Up and through. And then through the other one as well. And then gotta kind of come back and around like that. So we're going through both, and then kind of connect that one. And then what we do from this point is we want to kind of lift these up so they're out of the way. And there will be a little bit of drip, that's why we put this here. So then kind of tighten this up very slowly. You don't want to squeeze them all together like tight, but you want them kind of squeezed together so that when you tighten this one, it pulls it up and sort of out of the way. So as you can see, it's rising up now. It's getting out of my way. No stress on the hoses. And they're just barely touching each other so it doesn't sit there and consistently drip. So just like that. And now we have access to get into our color. Okay, so once you have all your white dampers up with your tie wraps, you just pull out the sponge that's in there, if you have one in there, and then kind of leave these ones aside. Now we're going to pull out each damper. I like to start from the left and then work my way to the right. So we're going to start off with black and then work our way across. Okay, so before you get started on pulling out the dampers, after you pull out the white, you're going to want to clean the insides of the tops of the head. So just get all the ink out of there, and then we can then proceed on to priming the back dampers. We just want to make sure that's all nice and cleaned out for when we prime our white and put our whites back in. So let's get to cleaning that. I'm going to show you how I do that, and then we'll get to priming. So what I start off with is a foam tip, and because they're so long, it's hard to get in there. I just take a pair of wire cutters and I'll cut that down to make the neck shorter so it's easier to clean the inside. So I just do that, cut it down, and now we have a nice little short stubby foam tip to work with, and it's a lot easier to get in there and clean the insides completely. So get yourself a cup of distilled water. You put the foam tip that you just cut, soak it a little bit, and then wring it completely out. And then when you put it in here, it'll soak up all of the white ink. And then just kind of go all the way around the little nub inside. And after you do one, rinse it off, squeeze it out, rinse it off, squeeze it out, move on to the next one. And you just repeat the process all the way across, rinsing out your foam, and then collecting all the ink from inside there. And then at the end, I just give it one last moisturizer, rinse that out. And I just kind of dab the tops of them. Don't let a ton of moisturizer run down. I rinse it out. I just kind of dab the tops with moisturizer. That way when we put the dampers on and everything, it's nice and moisturized. And that's that. So now we're ready to move on and start priming our colored dampers. Okay, so once you get to this point, you're going to want to grab one piece of paper towel, kind of fold it in half, and then place it in front of where you just cleaned on your white, just in front of your head, like that. So as you're pulling the damper out, if anything drips, it's going to drip onto this paper towel as opposed to inside your printer head, okay, where you're going to put your dampers. So just get that in there nice and snug. So again, as you pull it out, if it drips, it's going to drip onto here and not inside here. Okay, so we're going to start with the first damper. Again, I like to start from the left, so I'm going to pull out the black damper, I'll pinch the top, kind of give it a little wiggle, and as I'm wiggling it a little bit, I'm pulling straight up on it. And again, you want to watch the sides because there's a sponge here, so it's pressing a little bit against the damper. So you just be careful when you're pulling this first one out. Pull it straight up and then just straight out. Now as you can see, there's a bit of air in there. We want to get all that air out. Okay, so once you get the damper out, then you're going to want to prime it. So you stick your syringe in the bottom and then you start sucking on it. And then you pull it upside down to get all the air completely out. So I'm holding it upside down, upside down. And now once you get the air completely out, you're going to want to give it a little push back, and you'll see the damper bubble out just a little bit. You don't want to put too much pressure, just a little bit. And then kind of pull the damper back down over the paper towel, holding the syringe in. And then as you get to the paper towel, just ensure that there's no air in the damper, and then pull the syringe out very slowly. You may get a little bit of spillage. And then after that, grab a foam tip, rinse it off in your distilled water. And then with a foam tip, just wipe the inside of the damper. Before you put it back in the printer head, make sure that this part's clean. Now, as you're pulling it out, you may get a little bit of ink inside the part where we just wiped out from the from the head on the white. So again, you're going to want to grab that small little foam tip, and before you put that damper back, just make sure the inside of there is nice and clean. So as I pulled it out, I actually got none, but I'm just going to show you. You kind of just get in there as best you can and let the foam tip absorb all the ink around it. And then once you've done that, we have the inside clean. We've got the end of the damper clean now. That's ready to go back into the head, and we've got all the air out. Okay, so now we're going to put the damper back. And again, you can't touch here, because as soon as you touch this part of the damper, it's going to drip and you're going to have to re-prime it again. So you got to put it back in really carefully. So again, on the first one, if you have a sponge stuffed in there, you got to be really careful that you don't touch the sponge as you're putting it in. So I'm going to hold the sponge back a little bit with my one hand. I've got the top pinched of the damper so I have full control of it. And then I'm just placing the damper straight back into the hole. Just like that. And then you just carry on and move to the next one. So again, wiggling just a little bit, pulling up and pinching the top at the same time, nice and carefully. And as it loosens, you'll feel it loosen, and then just pull up very slowly and carefully. Again, not touching the sides of the damper. As long as you don't touch the sides or any part of it, nothing will drip. And just be very careful pulling it out, and nothing will drip. But if you touch that against the other side of the damper, as you're pulling it out, it's going to drip ink into your printer head. So you don't want to do that. So just be very careful pulling it out. So with each color that you pull out, you can either recycle the ink back into the container, or you can discard it, that little bit that's there. It's at your discretion. Either way, you want to rinse this off with distilled water. Just give it a nice little wash and rinse before each damper so that you're not mixing any colors within it. Okay, so once you have your syringe rinsed, move on to the next damper. Just insert it, start pulling. As you're pulling, kind of go upside down, pressing against the damper so the syringe doesn't come out. And again, once your damper's full, just push back a little bit till it pops out. And then still holding the syringe in, kind of bring yourself back down to the paper towel, pulling the syringe out slowly. You're gonna get a little bit of a drip. And then again, grab your foam tip, rinse it off, and clean out the inside of that so you put it back into the head nice and clean. So check, no air in the damper, we're good. It's popped out a little bit. Gonna clean the bottom of this and the inside, just stick sort of the corner tip in and get right inside there. And then once that's cleaned off, we're able to put that back onto the head and move on to the next damper. Give that a little wipe off. Wipe off. There we go. Now I didn't look inside there. It's nice and clean in there. Again, if you don't spill it as it comes out, you should be good, but if you do see any ink in there, just remove it. So now I'm going to pinch the top of it. It's a little bit easier on this one. You just got to go in between the dampers. I use my other finger here to sort of push it and straighten it out nice and straight. Again, as long as you don't move it around or bang it around or touch the sides, you just line it up and then put it straight back in. Once you're lined up, just make sure you're nice and straight. Again, not touching the sides. Sometimes it takes a second, again, just carefully. So once you get that damper in, you can take your ink that you put in the syringe and just, again, you can either discard it or put it back into the container. And then go and rinse this off and move on to the next damper. Okay, so now we'll pull out our next one. Again, carefully just lifting it up so it doesn't spill. Okay, so that's it. Once you've done the back dampers, or the ones that you need to get to prime out, and just remove this paper towel from the white head. And now we can move on to unclipping the white dampers and priming our white dampers. Okay, so we're going to bring our white dampers now down. We're going to clip the one zip tie, holding just the bottom of the hoses here, or the lines. Just hold on to the bottom, let it kind of fall onto your hand as you cut it. And then after you get it cut, just pull this out carefully. And now I'm kind of holding on to all the dampers. I didn't let them drop. And then just kind of go down gracefully with your hand, and they'll sort of fall into place. Then you can cut off these other two straps. And now we can start getting to the priming process. Okay, so once you have all of your dampers like this, you're going to grab a foam tip and just clean the bottoms of each one, just to ensure when we're putting them back in the head that we're putting them back in clean. And so what we have to do first is clean the bottoms of these, put the heads back in, and then do one at a time. And once you have the bottom nubs clean, we've already cleaned the inside of there, so we're good. And now we'll just put these back again carefully. You still have a little bit of ink in there, so you still want to be careful putting it back. And then just line it up and get it right into your printer head. Again, just keeping it straight. If you make a little bit of a mess, just wipe it up as you go accordingly. And the last one here, if you have foam there, just kind of hold it over so you don't touch the damper and put it straight into the head. White's a little bit easier to get into the heads versus the color, but you just take your time and you'll get it in there. And then if you make a little mess around the front here, just kind of grab your paper towel and kind of wipe accordingly and clean up accordingly. You can use a little bit of paper towel or your foam tip as well and let it absorb it. So now that we've got the heads back like this, you're going to want to open up all your white clips. So just open them all up. And now we've got all the white clips open. We've got all our dampers back in place. They're ready to be primed. Okay, so we're ready to prime the white now. So this is the part sort of when you first get your printer. I'm going to kill two birds with one stone here. And so once you have all the moisturizer out and we've filled this up with white and we've ran the white through and we're ready to be primed, this is what you're going to do for your first priming of white as well when you first receive the printer. So at this point, we're going to prime the white, and I like to start from the left and then work my way over to the right. Get a foam tip on hand, a new foam tip, a little cup of distilled water, and you rinse it out each time in between, and that's to wipe the insides of the damper before we put them back onto the head. Okay, again, so if you first got the printer and you've taken all the moisturizer and primed it out of the lines, and then you've put the dampers back in to start your first priming of your white. This is where you're going to start, and this will be filled. We'll fill this up first with white, and then we'll prime it down. So we can recycle all of the ink that we prime out. I'll just open up the container that's on the top of this machine. Put the cap aside for a minute. And now we'll grab our first damper. I like to start from the left. Again, You can grab a piece of paper towel. You'll have this paper towel in front, but you can also fold up one, fold it, and just kind of place it and just drape it in front of it. So if you do pull it out and it makes any mess, it'll just fall onto this too. Just extra protection for your head and any spillage, so there's not as much of a mess to clean up at the end. So once you have that in place, again, kind of play around with it. Or you can also grab some green tape. If it wants to be a nuisance and keep moving around on you there, you can just grab some green tape, put half of it at the top of it, folded like that, and then just sort of put it in front of it so it doesn't block you from putting the damper back. And then just kind of press down a little bit in front. And now that'll kind of stay on there. And it'll keep everything clean here and on the front of the head as I take each damper and put it back. So again, foam tip, make sure you have a little distilled water, rinse it out, and then any mess we got to clean out of there. And we've got to clean the end of the damper at the bottom before we put it back to make sure it goes back in nice and clean. So we're going to start off with number one here to the left. Kind of pull it off, give it a shake, a wiggle, and pull up and off. And now, for when you first get this, there's not going to be a mess inside, but when you have to change it afterwards, if you have to get to the back ones, as you pull these off, you may have to wipe a little bit of ink that's inside the head. Just a little bit gets in there. So again, for a second time, you wipe it again. Okay, so a little bit of ink got into the head there, just as I pulled that out. So I'm just, again, grabbing a foam tip and just wiping it up to make sure it's nice and clean from when we put it back in. Dab around there, clean the inside, and then rinse it off again for when we have to wipe the bottom of the damper. Now we grab our syringe, grabbing the damper, syringe in, kind of pressing against it ever so slightly, but nice and taut to keep it from slipping. So you want to hold it in there and then start sucking upside down to get the air completely out. Pull, pull, pull. You can pull. You don't have to pull it all the way up, but you make sure that the air is out of there, so you keep pulling. Now, as I pull up, I kind of push down a little bit and then pull up. I'll push down a little bit and then pull up again. And now I've got no air in there. And what I do is I push back just a little bit to pop the damper out. And then again, bringing it down slowly, because you'll get a little bit of a spill because of the pressure from pushing back. Until you get good at it, you're gonna get that little bit of spillage. So at this point, we've got no air in the damper. Grab your foam tip and clean the bottom of it before you put it back in your head. And now we've got the bottom clean. If you get a little bit on the outside or something, make sure you wipe around it. Just get all around it. Make sure there's no white ink there. Nice and clean for when it goes back in. And again, watching as you're putting the damper back in that you don't touch the circular part, and you just take it straight up, line it up nice and straight with your head where it's going to go in, and then just press down on it, straight down and in. And then move on to your next damper. So again, we're going to recycle the ink after we pull it out of each one. Just put it back into your container. Once it's back in, just give the tip a little wipe. And we don't have to keep rinsing this because it's all the same color. So then we just move on to our next damper, pull it out and up again. A little bit of ink on the inside. Just dab it out with your foam tip. It's been rinsed off so it can absorb any ink that's in there as best you can. And once you get all that, again, rinse it off and get ready to wipe it for after you prime. Now we're going to prime it upside down. You can go back and forth too if you have air in there that you kind of see. And then again, I'm pushing back a little bit and then I'm pulling up, push back a little bit, just ensuring that all the air is gone. And then as soon as I see no air, I give it a push back to get ready to go back in the head, putting it down carefully, holding the syringe in place as you go down, and then pulling out ever so slowly. You'll get a little bit of a drip, and then you wipe that and put it back in the head. Nice and clean. If you get any ink anywhere else on the damper, just kind of give it a wipe up with your foam tip. And once you get that nice and clean, just ensure there's no air again, and then put your damper back into place. Again, holding it carefully. You don't want to touch the sides. Nice and straight. Line it up. Once it's lined up and in place, just press down and push it in place. And that's it. Then we move on to our next one. Okay, so after you get your last damper primed and put into place, you can pull this off now. If you had a sponge in between, you can just put the sponge back in between. Kind of stuff it down in between. Give it a nice stuff down there. Okay, and now we've got our colored primed, we've got our white primed, and now we're ready to get on to the next step to get our nozzle check out and make sure that we've primed correctly. You can also remove everything else at this point that you've put down for any mess that was made during the process. Just take down all your paper towel. If any ink did spill in there by accident or got through, again, just wipe it up accordingly. And now let's move on to the next step where we load the ink, we do some cleanings, and then we see how the nozzle check looks. Okay, so we're all primed up, and now we got to load ink on both heads. So you go over to your Print XP, go over to your load ink, make sure that all your heads are selected, and then hit load ink. Let that load for about 25 seconds. Just let it get that ink flowing into the head. Okay, after about 30 to 40 seconds, you can stop it. And now after you load ink, go up to clean. All heads, normal. So now it's done its normal cleaning on both heads. Now if you just got the printer and this is your first time putting white in, after you do that on both heads, you go down and your normal clean, then you go down to just head 2, load ink, another 25 seconds on only head 2. And this is for if you just put white ink in for the first time. When you receive the printer, the color is already into the head. So we load both at the beginning, then we do a normal clean, and then we load a little bit more into the white because it's a fresh start. It's never had white go through the head yet from when it got to your house and the moisturizer was taken out. So you don't have to go 40 seconds. You let it 25, 30 seconds is enough. Then you hit the stop button. And then you go up to clean. And you do a weak clean at this point. once your week clean is done, then at that point you make sure that your margins are set to 0, and then you hit the check. And then it will print out a nozzle check. And let's see how well we did on the primer. Could need some more cleaning. Let's see. So there we go. Our white definitely needs a little bit more loading, and a couple of breaks in the color still, which is no problem. That's totally normal. So we're just going to give it a couple more cleanings, and that should clear that up. And if your white looks like that, you can just give it another loading for about 15 seconds, and then start cleaning. So again, head 2 only if it looks like that. Just needs a little more loaded into the head. So again, head 2, let's load some ink into the white. Just let it load in. And 15 seconds, 20 seconds is enough. Just enough to get a little more ink in there. Don't want to put too much and waste too much when you don't have to. Then at that point, you'll stop loading ink. And then you go up to clean, and we're going to do a strong clean on this one. So let's go strong. Okay, so after the strong clean, give it a normal. Okay, so we did a strong, a normal. Now we just give it a week. And then after this, we'll nozzle check and check our improvements. Okay, week clean is done. Again, making sure the margins are set to 0, and then we hit check. We'll see how this nozzle check goes. Okay, so color is bang on. We just need to work on the white a bit, which is totally normal. So just give it another normal clean. Normal. And even this normal clean, if it's the first time loading it, it might not clean right up. You might have to load ink for maybe another 30 seconds and then do a couple more cleanings, and then it'll clean up just like the color. And then you'll be good to go. Okay, so after that cleaning, just give it a check. And let's see if we need to load it some more. But if there's massive improvement, then that just means it might need another cleaning or 2. There you go. So we have some good improvement from the last time. Oops. You can't really see it because of that thing, but that's the last one there. That's our new one, so definite improvements. The color's looking fantastic. So again, we just got to clean this up a little bit. A couple more cleanings, so we'll do a normal clean now. Give it one normal and a week, and then we'll see what it looks like. Okay, so that normal clean is done. I'm going to perform one more week clean. But before I do that, I'm going to give the wiper blade a cleaning and a moisturizer quick, so we can just, sometimes if you get like long breaks in this, in your nozzle check, sometimes that means that your wiper blade needs to be cleaned because it's reading off of that. So I'm going to give this a quick cleaning and a moisturizing, and then we'll do a week clean, and then we'll do a nozzle check and see where we're at. Okay, so I'm just going to hit the head over to the left. Just hit the left button, crank it over to the left. Just grab a foam tip with some ringed out. You can put water on it and wring it out, and just absorb the ink that's on there first before you moisturize. So just wipe it. Sometimes you have to wring it out twice to give it a wiping. And once you get all the ink off of the blade, rinse it off one last time, wring it out really nice, your foam tip, and then just put moisturizer and fill your foam tip up a bit. You don't have to go all the way where it's leaking. And then we just moisturize the wiper blade. And once you're moisturized, you can even give a little wipe around the capping station while you're here, just to clean it a little bit. Okay, and from there, just hit base point. We'll go back to base, to your capping station, go over to Print XP, clean, weak, and then we'll do a nozzle check. Okay, we've cleaned it, we turned it back to base, we've done a weak clean. Again, sometimes the margins change, just make sure they're set to 0. Has a tendency of doing that sometimes, and then just hit check. And there we go. And now we have a good read on both heads. A couple of breaks there, but those are okay. You can still print with that, and it won't affect anything. So what I do from this point, you're pretty good. You're good to go from here. I just give it one more week clean, just to clean up those last little clogs there, and you're good to print at this point. This week. And you're printing.